Imagine you're a police officer, right? You're on this totally routine traffic stop. And out of nowhere, you get this intense, sudden thought that's just screaming, yell at him to put his hands on his head and get out of the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you do it. And that split-second intuition actually ends up saving your life.
It's such a striking story from our sources today. I mean, it perfectly illustrates what people often call a still small voice or, personal revelation.
Right, which sets up our mission perfectly for this deep dive, because today we are looking at this entire framework for spiritual growth.
Yeah, the sources use this really compelling metaphor of life as a spiritual voyage. You're basically navigating a ship through incredibly rough seas toward a lighthouse.
Exactly. And the goal here isn't to pretend the storms just don't exist. It's about figuring out how to build your vessel and actually get there.
Right, and we'll be looking at 5 key elements for that voyage today. Things like faith, humility, prayer, service, and being an example.
So to even start using a compass, like that police officer did, the text argues there's this strict prerequisite, which is humility.
Humility, yeah.
Yeah.
But they redefine it, which I find so interesting.
Not the usual definition, right?
No, not at all. It's not about, putting yourself down or thinking you're worthless. It's actually just a very practical admission of saying, I don't actually know the way.
I love that distinction. It's like that moment you finally stop fighting the storm all on your own and you just willingly hand the ship's wheel over to a more experienced captain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if humility is giving up the wheel, the sources frame faith as the actual engine of the ship.
Because faith requires forward motion.
Right. Mechanically speaking here, I mean, you literally cannot steer a parked ship. You have to be moving.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And the psychological shift there is pretty fascinating. By making it a daily habit to attribute your successes to God's help or something bigger than your own grinding effort, you create this mental space.
Oh, so you stop relying solely on your own limited vision.
Precisely. You create the space required to actually receive direction.
Okay, so the engine is running. You've handed over the wheel. Now we need the actual coordinates for the voyage.
Which is where the navigation tools come in. The sources map this out by having scriptures act as this objective, fixed lighthouse, and then prayer acts as your internal compass.
Bringing in that personal revelation we talked about at the start.
Right, like with the police officer.
Yeah.
But the catch is how that compass communicates. It is rarely a shouting voice.
It's that still small voice.
Yeah. The framework insists that finding that direction requires, intentionally shutting out worldly noise, just so you can tune into it.
Okay, I have to push back on that a bit, though. I mean, curating a perfectly quiet environment sounds great if you're in a monastery.
Right, sure.
But what about, say, a mother of 3 who's juggling a job and bills and just endless phone notifications? How is she supposed to hear a whisper over the deafening noise of modern survival?
See, that is the exact tension the text wrestles with. The mechanism isn't necessarily finding 2 hours of total uninterrupted silence.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. It's about intentional micro-moments. It's deliberately pausing the input, like just turning off the radio in the car for a minute.
Or maybe ignoring your phone for 5 minutes before making a big decision.
Exactly. So your brain isn't just constantly reacting to stimuli. It actually becomes open to internal prompting.
It's really about creating mental bandwidth.
Yeah, bandwidth is a great word for it.
So once you have that bandwidth and your ship is finally on course, the dynamic shifts again, because you are not the only boat out there in the water.
No, you're not. And this is where the framework moves from internal navigation to external impact. They use this great little anecdote about someone simply sharing blackberries with a neighbor.
Ah, right, to illustrate service and love.
Yeah. And the core mechanic here is a mindset shift. It's about viewing service not as this mandatory, exhausting duty, but actually as a privilege.
But how does changing the label from duty to privilege actually change anything? I mean, physically, sharing the blackberries is the exact same action.
Well, it changes the burnout factor. When service is just a duty, it drains your personal reserve.
Because it feels like an obligation.
Exactly. But when you frame it as a privilege, you start to view yourself as a conduit for divine blessings, basically.
Oh, wow.
It pulls you out of that self-centric survival mode, which ironically gives you more energy because you aren't the sole source of it anymore.
That makes so much sense, and that directly feeds into the power of example and testimony, doesn't it?
It really does. The text talks about these honest missionaries who impacted people just by the authentic way they live their lives.
Because if your daily actions align with your beliefs, you stop being just a ship trying to survive the storm. You actually become a secondary lighthouse for the boats sailing right next to you.
That's a great way to put it. It's a deeply interconnected system. You start by admitting you need help, then you take action.
You tune your ear to the compass.
Yeah, and then you use your position to guide others.
It's just a completely different way to look at the daily grind. You aren't just surviving the waves, You're navigating them with an actual purpose.
It really is a holistic toolkit for finding true peace amidst all the distractions.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today. But we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on.
Something to think about as you go about your day.
Right. So think about the actual physical physics of a moving ship. It leaves a wake behind it in the water. Take a hard look at your own daily routine. Is the wake you're creating helping smooth the waters and guide others toward the lighthouse? Or is your wake just making the ocean rougher for everyone else?